welcome to part 3 of the AR Basecamp challenge. We've covered quite a lot of difficult but basic programming concepts. The function part is quite a difficult thing to understand, so it's okay if you go back over it and play around with it. Create another function. So in this part we're going to look at for loops. A for loop is a way of looping over a piece of code several times. So it's something you want to do several times, and it's quite essential to solving this challenge, the repeat string challenge, because in this challenge, if you remember, we have to do a loop. We have to print a string n number of times and then return that string. So we're going to need to use a for loop. Well, if we come back to the playground, I can add another parameter to my print a string function, and I'm gonna call it number of times, and it's going to be of type int. So I write the name of the parameter followed by a colon followed by the type of variable, in this case an int or integer for short. We get a little error here which we'll solve in a minute. So inside of our function, the first thing we do is print a string, so we print a string. Now we're going to do a for loop, so we write the word for. Swift comes up with an autocomplete for a for loop where it writes out the basic formula of it. So to help you, you can do that. And there are 3 things you need to fill in. Firstly, for item, so this first part is going to be what's called the placeholder, and we're going to call it n. You can call it anything you want, but what this represents is whatever value or number we're at in the current for loop. And then we have the keyword in, and that means for in, or for inside of a certain sequence or a loop. So, and what we want to do here is to loop from 0 ... 3 dots to number of times. So what this is telling the for loop is from 0 to number of times, which could be, say, 10. So from 0 to 10, do this piece of code inside of these brackets, and on every loop place the value that we're at. So on the first loop 0, on the second loop 1, on the third loop 2, etc. Place that value inside of this placeholder variable n. And then, without actually completing the piece of code in here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to print out n, and that will help to demonstrate what's actually going on inside of this loop. Okay, and to fix this error down here, so what we're doing here is creating a variable called return result, and then we're assigning this return result with the value that's passed back from our function. And our function is calling this function up here, but we've changed the definition of this function now. We added another variable, so it's complaining that the name doesn't match this one, so we have to change it to match it. And we can do that by pressing the white dot in the red circle, and it will add on the extra parameter that we need. We then have to tell it what value we want for n number of times. I'm going to write 10. Give that a second, and you'll see in the console below that print a string has been called with a value a string hello world and a value of number of times 10. And then we're printing that string out onto the screen here, hello world, and then we are going around this for loop n number of times, from 0 to number of times, and we're going around it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and on every loop we're printing out the value of this placeholder n. So that is basically what is going on and we can visualize that by printing that out onto the console, which helps a little bit with understanding. So that is a for loop. In the next section, we're going to look briefly at the concept of local variables and concatenating strings, so adding strings on. I hope to see you there.